Welcome back. While the timing of the ORB report leads some to question the impact and purpose of such surveys and even their credibility, so are they designed to state the facts or rather bring about the political change or embarrass those in power? The 2006 Lancet report, which estimated over 600,000 deaths, was released on 1 month before midterm congressional elections in the US. The release of the ORB report in the middle of the US presidential campaign, where Democrats are expected to win, could be an attempt to squeeze the Republican Party. Yet the media has largely ignored the report, and there's been only silence from the White House and the Pentagon, and even the Democratic Party candidates on the report's findings. Mr. Allen, your report doesn't seem to produce much fireworks as the Lancet 2006 report did. Do you think there are new emerging realities which led people to just say, we no longer care about that?
I don't know. Obviously, since we released the figures, we've certainly had a lot of interest, a lot of phone calls and emails to our company. So there is interest. I think one of the most honest answers I can give is that people were surprised that the Lancet report appeared where it did. Obviously, the Lancet is known worldwide, and I imagine that's why it was picked up upon. My company, the opinion research business, at the moment doesn't have the same worldwide image, and I imagine that that has got as much to do with the difference in uptake as anything else.
Mr. Munro, the 2006 Lancet report bolstered the anti-sentiment and led after that which led to the Democrats taking over the Congress. Do you think that this one would have any impact on the presidential campaign in the US?
No, it will have no impact because nobody really believes it. And on the other hand, it wasn't released just recently. The original of this report came out in September, and the Iraqi researcher who did it told me I timed the release back last year so that it would appear as General Petraeus was giving his speech in Congress. It was an attempt to make the American effort, to make the successful American effort look like a failure. But itself, it failed. It got very little publicity because nobody really believed it. And the Lancet publication is also getting very little, is in trouble. In part, the Lancet itself published an editorial acknowledging just the other day that the new study is much more, a better bet and more reliably accurate.
What kind of impact?
That's the new government study.
Mr. Farid, what kind of impact will it have on the Iraqi political landscape?
I have no
Well, I don't
idea.
think there is an...
Iraqis choose to believe it. Because look, Mr. Farid there didn't say they would bring this 501 million dead message to Maliki's desk. More likely they go to Maliki and say, we're suffering too. And yes, we agree with this lower number of deaths, because now the Sunnis have to make a deal
but at
with
least
the majority
Mr. Munro,
Shia and the elected Shia.
Farid was presenting a very somber reality in Iraq. Let's listen to what he thinks. Well, by the end of the day, he's an Iraqi and he's a spokesperson of an Iraqi party.
Yes, but does he do that in Iraq? I doubt it very much.
Can we listen to him at least for a second?
Yeah,
of course.
Well, we do that in Iraq. Sorry, we do that in Iraq, and we tell al-Maliki that your government has been responsible for a lot of death, as the Al-Qaeda is responsible for thousands of deaths in Iraq. But I mean, I think the gentleman of the United States has to visit Iraq to see. You have to visit Iraq in order to see what the reality in Baghdad, to see that it's a ghost city, a city of 6 million people, where at least thousands of, yes, of course, I mean, thousands killed on each side, or hundreds of thousands of. No, 1 second. We're talking about okay, 500,000, 600,000. Is that a small number? What I'm saying, in Baghdad alone, in the past 17 months, if that
was the case, all the young men, nearly all the young men in the Sunni communities in Baghdad would be dead.
No, it's not the young man. What about Fallujah, when it was bombed? I mean, Sunni men, women, and children, old men, young men. Everybody saw the number. Doesn't know that if you are young or old.
Few people.
No, what about Diyala? What about Baghdad?
Mr. Farid, we were talking about any kind of impact on the political reality in Iraq. Can you just give me 1 second, please, gentlemen? The report was saying that the 33% of the Sunnis who were asked said that they're likely to have known victims among their household. Is this something, Mr. Farid, that could further fan sectarian violence in your country?
Well, you see, the problem is in Iraq now, there is no reconciliation between the people of Iraq and between the government. The government is behind many of the militias that is working in Iraq. That's what we are working now very hard in order to bring the Iraqi government to its senses and to say to it, stop supporting the militias and try to work with us in order for the national reconciliation between the whole Iraqi people, in order for the Iraqi people to have some confidence in the Iraqi security forces. The problem in Iraq now, we don't have confidence in the security forces because many of the killings, thousands of the killings in Baghdad alone, has been carried out by the Iraqi security forces, which is trained by the multinational forces. This is another reality. You have to understand.
Let me go back to Mr. Alan Hyde. Mr. Alan, you listened to what Munro said from the beginning, which is the fact that your survey was conducted by a Ba'athist, so the findings were politically motivated, and he was suggesting that the outcome was doctored. How would you answer to that specific question about the Ba'athist?
Well, really, I would answer it very clearly and say that is not the motivation. And what would be the motivation for my company, Opinion Research Business, presenting this data? And I'll tell you, the interest is that we're social researchers. This is most of the work we do is for commercial clients. This isn't, and Opinion Research Business simply does not have an agenda. We're genuinely interested in the situation. And if I can point out that in March 2007, we released some figures which were taken up by some organisations, including the Sunday Times. At that time, we said that by 2 to 1, people in Iraq said that they preferred the situation now to the situation under Saddam Hussein. So by 2 to 1, they were saying, despite all of the violence, the lack of electricity, the complete breakdown in some cases of medical facilities, that they preferred their lives post 2003.
Well, this is another issue.
We were attacked by all sorts.
Is this something that the Iraqis...
If I can just finish. At that time,
go ahead.
We were attacked by lots of anti-war people saying your figures can't be right. So it's one of those things that if you release a statistic about Iraq, some people will believe it because it supports their agenda. Some people won't believe it because it supports theirs. But the reality is that the figures are
Mr. Munro,
very close to reality, and we present them, and people can draw their own conclusions.
Mr. Munro, if we can't believe into the statistics, how can you convince us that the reality is better, far better now in Iraq, when everybody knows that the stay the course policy is a disaster by all standards?
By all standards, by the Iraqi standards, now that the majority is in control and Al-Qaeda is on the run, I think the only people who get to decide this are the Iraqis, not Al Jazeera, not Sunnis outside the country. This is an Iraqi question, and it does not matter what you are convinced of. The Iraqis get a choice. And to Mr. Orb there, that's reassuring when you provide data. That run counter to the interests of the Ba'athists, such as the opinions of the Iraqis, that they prefer 2 to 1. That's the kind of reassuring data.
You started
which,
by
if
saying
you can produce more, would.
You have no problem with the scientific approach, but you have problem with the ideological leanings. But listening to you, I feel like most of what you say is a little bit politically motivated, because how can you describe reality as perfect in Iraq when everybody seems to agree, at least there? It doesn't seem to be the case.
No, I do not describe our life as Iraq. This is a political question. A political question is for the Iraqis to decide. I cover science. I look at these reports as scientific matters. Are they verifiable? Do they have corroborating information? Can other people repeat them? The answer is nearly always no. The answer is that nearly all these studies come from black box studies.
Yes.
Farid, is situation now in Iraq better than it was in Saddam Hussein, according to Iraqis?
Well, I just want, before this to come, I want to point out our friend in the United States is on the defensive. Yes, I think the situation now in Iraq is much worse, but people have got some kind of aspiration to democracy. This is the only hope they have, but otherwise the situation is far worse than 5 years ago.
Mr. Alan Hyde?
Not for the Shia. They get to not.
Well, I mean, go to the south. Go to the south. Go to the south. Go to the south of Iraq and see how they're living. They're killing each other. The militias, Iran, Iraq has got no defenses, and the situation, they don't have even not water, no electricity, no freedom, nothing. So what kind of situation are you talking about?
Gentlemen, the
They now have the
controversy
freedom to vote for the
goes
Ba'athist
on
Party.
over the findings of the ORB statistics about the casualties in Iraq post the 2003. Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.